Good. So, welcome one and all. On Daf Yud Aleph Amud Aleph. We're really on Daf, Yud Aleph Amud Aleph. We're in the middle of the machloka between Rabbi Shua and Rabbi Eliezer on several issues, but they mostly seem to center for our purposes on when was the world created and what month was the snapshot of when Adam Harishon, Chava Ein Kol Chai came into being as humans. So what month was it? Rabbi Eliezer says it in Tishrei, and Rabbi Shua says it was in Nisan. On the list, they both agree that in the month of during Pesach, Yitzchak Avinu was born. The discussion that we had last time was in the Gemara on Yud Aleph Amud Aleph, a conversation about when exactly if he was born on Pesach. So how are we going to understand the meeting of the Malachim with Avram and Sarah when they come to the tent? What month was that? Is it a full year earlier? Or is it 6 months earlier? Or is it 50 days earlier? Why is there a discrepancy or a discussion? Because the language that they use is the language of La Mo'ed, meaning they're going to come back. One interpretation, which ultimately is rejected, is at the very next Yom Tov, we'll come back. That's not ultimately rejected, I should say. The hypothesis is, they must have come Pesach time. So now that means the next Mo'ed is Shavuot. How could someone conceive and have a baby in 50 days? So that's not it, right? So then, so what's the next option? They came on Shavuot and they said she's going to have the baby by Sukkot. Same problem, pretty much. Now, by the by, you could have asked me, it's a nace altogether. She's 90 years of age. She's having a baby, so maybe the nace is 50-something days. So the very simple answer to that is an argument from silence. The Torah never tells us that there was such a nace, that she had a child in such a short time span. The Torah would have told us, an even greater miracle than the 90-year-old woman having a baby is that she had the baby in 50 days. But we have no such record.
That he was fully developed because they circumcised him on the 8th day. They wouldn't have.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Oh, very good. So then if he was a preemie, exactly. Okay, exactly. So this. Right. That's already in the previous parsha. Right. So that's another factor, and that's one of the issues being discussed here as well. So I guess we'll sort of, so if you will, fly through it. So you sort of have to understand what's happening in tonight's Gemara, which is actually a very complex Gemara, to try to understand the underpinnings of it and to wrap our heads around it in the moment in which we live, to try to get ourselves into understanding of how Chazal understood it and to reconcile. We'll get to that maybe a little bit later tonight. Anyway, if you look at the wide lines in the Gemara, the first word on the line is Shenamar, and we spar Ayamecha Amalei. That's from the previous piece. And now the new piece, which is not really new, it's Chazar from last week. Ben Pesach Nolad Yitzchak Minalan. How do you know it was on Pesach? Kidechtiv La Moed Ashuv Eilecha. So in the parsha of the Malachim visiting with Avram Avinu, sorry, man, on 11a, right? On the wide lines. The first word on the line was Shenamar, but it's almost halfway down the page, I would say, in the wide lines. Halfway down the page, yeah, on the wide lines. Okay, so on that same line, so then it starts, right? So the Malachim had said, right, La Moed Ashuv Eilecha Ka'eit Chayil Sarabain. So La Moed Ashuv Eilecha Eimat Kai. When was that? Ilim Pesach. If they showed up and it was Pesach with Ka'amar Le Ba'atzeret, they're coming back on by Shavuot. She'll have the baby. B'chamshin Yomin Mika Yalda. She's gonna have the baby in 50 days. Ela the Kai Ba'atzeret Ka'amar B'Tishrei. Akati b'chamisha yarche mika yalda. So then it would also be a preemie, as Yehuda pointed out, 5 months between Shavuot and Tishrei. So Elo the Kai b'chag. It must be that they came on Sukkot. V'ka'amar la b'Nisan. So they said, we're going to be back. You'll have the baby in Chodesh Nisan. So the Gemara here asks also, Akati b'shita yarche mika yalda. How could she have a viable child after only 6 months? Tana, Otashana Me'uberet Haita. There was an extra Chodesh Adar, solved the problem. Right, a leap year. Again, and you'll ask me, how could it be a Shana Me'uberet? Because no one doing Kiddush HaChodesh. So who's being Ma'aber the Shana? Who's counting, right? But you could have asked me an earlier question, which we talked about last time, which is, what is Pesach? What is Sukkot? Without holidays, there's no Yetziat Mitzrayim, and there's no Sukkah, right?
The time of Abraham Avinu, we didn't have those holidays.
Yeah, I'm saying so. That's my point. But the Gemara doesn't even ask that as a question. How come? So remember, we referenced last time the Gemara in Yuma on Yechaf Chet Amud Bet says Avram Avinu, sorry, Imenu, Yitzchak and Rivka, Yaakov, Rachel, they kept the Torah. They knew the whole Torah. Avram Avinu, it says there specifically about Avram Avinu, he kept the entire Torah. He knew the whole Torah. How did he know it? He's a Navi. Where is it written that he knew it? It's written in the Gemara that he knew it. It's a self-contained idea. He was a prophet. He wasn't commanded. He's an Eino Mitzuva, but also he knew, he intuited. I pointed out last time that it's not so incredible that a man who believes in Hashem, that sees every single thing that happens, but against the backdrop of godliness, there's something about Hashem in the world, understands that the changing of the seasons, particularly at the harvest times, when everybody is celebrating their ability and they're thanking their Avodah Zarah, he understands that Pesach, he's thanking Ribono Shel Olam on the Tvua, and on Shavuot for fruits, and comes Sukkot for the ingathering of crops. So it's the Chag, right? Each thing is another element of the agricultural cycle. Maybe the historical reasons came later. That's one possibility, right? The first possibility is he just knew before it even happened. He couldn't tell anybody, but he knew and he kept all of it. Yacholiyot. He was a Navi, and the Gemara actually says that he kept everything. One. Two, maybe he knew what he knew, but it wasn't connected to historical events that hadn't happened yet. Maybe it's connected to an agricultural cycle that is, after all, a feature of all these Yom Tovim. Number three, perhaps, not unlikely, in fact, that there were things that happened in his own life, such as God tells him that he's the one who took him out of Ur Kasdim. So he also had to get Siyat Ur Kasdim. He even, Avinu did experience to get Siyat Mitzrayim with Sarah Imenu. Remember, there was a drought. They had to go to Mitzrayim. He had to get Siyat Mitzrayim. So maybe there was something there. You'll ask me, well, how are you going to fit into the box, Rabbi Shavuot, Sukkot? There'd be a way. I don't know. But the point here is the Gemara is not interested in that question, because the Gemara is interested in something else, which is if the Torah said La Mo'ed, so is that the source for saying that Pesach Nolad Yitzchak? Is that so? If you want to say he's born on Pesach, and then they came and they said La Mo'ed, so when did they show up? It has to be before. So how much before? So the Gemara
from Rashi, from Rashi, he says that it was on Pesach. That was the ogot that he was bringing was the matzah. So you already had that from the whole story. The Malachim coming.
Wait, where does Rashi say that?
Rashi says
not in the Gemara.
No, in the Chumash. Yeah,
right. Exactly. We talked about this last time. Exactly. Okay. Rashi on Chumash takes as a given, based on various midrashim that Tosfot are going to quote right here on the daf, that it used the expression Pesach Haya, Lushi Vasiugot Pesach Haya.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that he's taking the meat that he's taking is also some kind of a korban. It's all connected, absolutely, right? The Gemara here does not entertain that possibility, or at least not to this point. It assumes that it means that he was born on Pesach, must mean that that the news came like a Yom Tov before. So what's the Yom Tov before Pesach? Must be Sukkot. But to Ronnie's point, that's what Tosfot's going to start saying. Wait a minute, we have different midrashim that contradict what the Gemara here itself is articulating about the timeline. Yeah. So again, so then back to the Gemara. So as it throws in Shana Me'uberet, it's like I think the technical term is it's touching it up. It's a teretz. How could the baby be viable 6 months? So first of all, Kodesh Baruch Hu Kol Yachol. So maybe the baby was viable in 6 months. Yeah. So the Gemara says no, it was a Shana Me'uberet, an ubiyur. How could it be? There's no bait in there, not being Makadosh the Chodesh, doesn't exist. So what? Okay, Avram Avinu was a Bezdin. I don't know. The Chodesh Zalachem Rosh Chodashim is a Chiddush to Moshe Rabbeinu, isn't it? So how does all this add up? Shana Mubar, so Kimad Lemar Yomei Tuma Batzri Lahu. So he says, all told, you still have to take into account the fact that and to Ronnie's having recalled it. It was Lushiva Ugot, but the Ugot, which are matzot, according to Rashi there in the Chumash, never make it to the Malachim. How come? Pirsa Nida, and there was Tuma on the matzot, she couldn't serve it. So they never ended up serving it. So if she becomes a Nida when they come, and it's Pesach, so that's 7 days of the Tumat Nida. I pointed out last time that today our system is actually an amalgamation of Tumat Nida and Tumat Zivut, Nidut and Zivut, Nida and a Zava, and it's an amalgamated system. But back in the day, there was only Nida and Zava as two different systems. The Nida system, it was 7 days of Tumah no matter what. From the moment the woman is pierced on Nida until she could go to the mikveh, was 7 days no matter what. That's Midoraita. The Rabbanan, we already amalgamate the two systems, and that is that. So the point is, so it's not really going to be a full 7 months. Yeah, but it's into the 7th month is the point, and that should be good enough. Something like that. Please.
Saying it was a Shana Mu'galat, how do you get to 7 months or 9 months?
Because the month of Tishrei, because they came on the 15th, so it'll count it as Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev, Mar Cheshvan, Kislev, Tevet, Shvat, Adar, Adar Sheni.
7.
Well, it's not really 7 because they came on the 15th of the month on Sukkot, presumably, and that's why I said Lamoed. So it's just getting there. It's
So Pesach was
into the
also-
7. It's 7 months to Pesach. Yeah.
Don't you?
So the point is that at 7 months, maybe the child is completely ready for a Brit Milah. But the Gemara talks about it. That's the next thing.
7 months is a viable baby. The
Uh-huh.
8th month is questionable, the 9th obviously is.
Right.
Is the full-
Right. Right. Machon in general. Yeah.
Generally, right.
Yeah. Amar Zusha Filaman Dama Yoleta Latisha and Yoletem Lekutoin. Yoleta Shiva Yoletem Lekutoin. Shnever Vayil Tkufot Hayamim Miut Tkufot Shtaim Umiut Yamim Shnaim. So the point here is that a woman is going to give birth 9 months. Then it's 9 full months. If it's 7 months, it could be like partially into the 7th month kind of idea. And we learned this from Chana by Tkufot Yamim. It so happened after Tkufot Yamim. So the derivation, how many days is this? So the minimum number of tekufot is 2. A tekufa is 3 months. We said there are 4 tekufot in a year. So that's 6 months right there. And miut yamim mishnayim. So 62 days until Shmuel Hanavi was born, right? So, okay, again, here, that's quite, not 62, sorry, 6 months and 2 more days. That's what I meant to say, right? So instead of 9 months, so 6 months and 2 days into the 7th month. So that also Shmuel Hanavi was a viable baby. Again, what are they trying to show? That both Rabbi Yehoshua and Rabbi Eliezer agree that on Pesach he was born. The Torah had used the expression Lamoed. Therefore, somehow the news must have come to Sar Yimenu when on the prior Moed to Pesach, which is Sukkot. And so they're engaging all these ideas to try to prove this concept. Yeah. And when you look at Tosfot here, and that's what we saw last time, Tosfot argue El Dekai B'Chag V'Ka'amar La B'Nisan means that they came on. We saw that already in the Gemara, right? They came on Sukkot and they announced that the baby would come in Nisan. It sounds from what we're reading here that in Tishrei, Avram Avinu must have had his bris. If the angels came to the home to visit Avram Avinu after his Brit Milah, 3 days after the Brit Milah, then it clearly had the Brit Milah in Tishrei, because if they really came in Chodesh Tishrei. So the Beperek Asochet Apolim, this is Bab Metzia, Amar B'Shlishi Shomila Bo Etzlo Malachim Vaz Nemar Lo Lamoed Ashuvei Lacha Ka'et Chaya. All right, so okay, so therefore he was being told Tishrei time, when you come back next time, you'll have a baby. Yeah? And that's the next holiday. Well, Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, Nam Yamrina D'Yom Kippurim Nimol, right? Avram Avinu. He really had his bris on Yom Kippur itself. Ahashta, wait a minute. Hada Amar B'Chag Lav Davka. So the fact that it said that it was on the holiday that the angels came, that's Lav Davka. The Shnei Yom Lifnei Chag Hava, it was really 2 days before Sukkot. Because if he really had the Brit Milah on Yom Kippur plus 3 days, it does not get you all the way to Sukkot, which is 5 days after Yom Kippur. So okay, so it's the 2 days before, it's the 13th day of Tishrei, right? Kevin Dinimol Yom Kippurim. Right? Even though it sounds here in our Gemara like the word Lamoed Rishon means in the first holiday after Sukkot, even though it wasn't yet Sukkot, it was like it was Sukkot, even though it was really 2 days before Sukkot, because it was the next holiday coming. So, so the point is, they said the next holiday. They didn't mean we came to visit you on the 13th day of Tishrei, on the next holiday, meaning in 2 days from now. They meant the next holiday after this holiday. Yeah. Yeah. So okay, so that's how Tosa works it out. But U'l'maydim askina di yoledet l'shiva, yoledet l'mekutoyin, lo havet tzarech l'shnuyei shana me'uberet haita. But the truth is, the one that holds that one who is a yoledet for 7 months can be yoledet l'mekutoyin, means not the full month, but as we would say today, into the 7th month, and that would be good enough to be considered a 7-month-old a fetus. It means into the 7th month, so you don't have to have that argument about an extra month of Adar, because when you work out the days, so the chimadlit nami yemei tuma tav nami blel chamishi l'chag, right? If she became a nida on the 13th day of Tishrei, because that's when the angels came, that's when they heard the news, that's when she was Pirs Nida. She has to wait 7 days, then she went to the mikvah. That's on the 5th night of Sukkot. That's how it would work out. The Afshar, the Yalda b'yam achon Pesach, when she gave birth on the last day of Pesach, and then it would for sure be 6 months plus a number of days, which gets you into the 7th month, and then the baby's viable. So the Gemara then points out, wait a second, there's a whole other way of seeing this. Elamishum da'amrinu b'seder olam. Seder olam, Rabbi Yosef Chalafta, it's a very early source of chronology. The Mechilta means it's already a Medrash Halacha from the days of the Tanayim. So the Parshat Vayisu b'nei Summer Ramses, what does it say there? The Betet Vav b'Nisan Nolad Yitzchak. He was born not at the last day of Pesach, but on the first day of Pesach he was born. Umiyu pligi adahachi the kamer now Betet Vav b'Nisan Dibar Kadosh Baruch Hu Avram Betet Vav b'Nisan Ba Malach Levasro. And by the by, there is an argument over there with the sources there, and those sources, Seder Olam the Mechilta, with our Gemara. How come? Because it also says over there that on the 15th of Nisan, Hashem came to Avram Avinu to tell him he's going to have a baby. And when did the baby arrive? Not at the next Yom Tov, but a year later on the 15th of Nisan. Okay? So, yeah. So now, Rabbi Meir, so in other words, we have these other sources that claim it was a full year later. Like Rashi said on Chumash, the angels came, it was Pesach Haya, Lushiva Sugyot is matzah. They never ended up serving the matzah, but it's a Pesach time, yeah? Rabbi Meir Shliach Tzibur, who is Rabbi Meir Shliach Tzibur, I mentioned last time. He's among the Rishonim, one of the great Paitanim. We had all sorts of, don't tell everybody because they get too excited and they want me to put it back in and the davening will be longer. But it was for the 4 Parshiot, there's Yotzrot.
Yeah.
There are a lot of piyutim in the back already of the art scroll Machzor Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. It was written by Rishonim. They were part of the davening. We still have a lot that we say, but we don't say as many as are actually out there. It's lahavda, a little bit like Kinot. Like there are way more Kinot than what you see in the printed Sfarim. They just went off time. We couldn't say all of them. So the publisher sort of decided with whoever was in the communities, whatever they're saying got published, So there also used to be extra tefillot that were added into Marav on Yom Tov called Maraviot. So we still have new Brach Dodi on Pesach. So there's actually one for every Yom Tov. There's extra material. And by Marav there also was extra material for Yom Tov. We simply don't say it. But Rabbi Meir, Shliach Tzibur Yasad, b'Marav Shel Pesach, u'matzot afa, vayochlu b'leilei Chag Pesach. So in other words, the matzah was baked and it was eaten on the night of Pesach. What? And it's referencing Avram Avinu and the angels, yeah? Remember in Breshit Rabbah, what does it say in the Medrash? Breshit Rabbah, I mentioned last year, very early Medrash, Lushi v'asiu got, go make the cakes. Hada amart shepesach haya. V'chani lo svarle de la moed ashuvelach ke'et chaya amoed rishon. El klomar la moed kazeh. When the angels, according to this reading, it's not la moed means at the next holiday, but it means at the next time of the year when this moed comes around. When it's this time, appointed time next year, meaning that by next Pesach. Shu Pesach, v'chein tirgem unkelus. That's what Unkelus has. Unkelus, don't forget, he's Unkelus Hager, but he learns how to do the Targum, the Gemara Megillah Daf Gimel. It's all the way back. It's heralds from Chagei Zechariah Malachi. It goes down the pike. It's very heavy, not heavy. It's a very high-minded, from a spiritual perspective. It has a great madrega, the Targum Unkelus, not Stam, a guy who wrote Aramaic. He's writing it essentially, according to the Gemara Megillah, essentially through some kind of Ruach HaKodesh. So they're also Ke'et da'atun kayamin, like at the time that we are found now, i.e., at this time of year, but meaning next year. The fact that in the previous chapter, before Avram Avinu has the Brit Milah, in chapter Yod Zayin of Sefer Breshit, Avram Avinu already hears the words Lamo Eid Hazeh B'Shana Acheret. right? What does it say? I'm reading the Medrash Tanchuma, and it says, sarat lo srita bakotel, that as it were, so to speak, a line was drawn, a scratch was made in the wall. The sun was pouring in through the window. So exactly where the sun was pouring in, that's where the line was made. Next year at this time, the sun will be at exactly this spot. You'll have a baby, right? Al korchach the betenfav b'nisan nemar ubo bayom nimol ubo bayom ba'al malachim b'shana zu. Right, so it must be 15th of Nisan is the so to speak the magic day. He got the mitzvah, he did the mitzvah, right? Everything was happening at the same time, and he was told this on this day by the Ribono Shel Olam, the 15th of Nisan, and then the angels come 3 days into it. It's still Pesach, etc. Right, and the whole thing. Okay. Tema the Chol Hane da Amre B'Tishrei. Have a hechi mekayim ha'u kra v'la mo'ed hazeh b'shana ha'acheret. Ve'echi techin lomar sh'nistava b'Pesach v'lo nimol ad Tishrei v'lo zrizin makdim l'mitzvot. According to the people who hold that it was in Tishrei that the angel came to Avram Avinu and told him all these things that are going to happen. So, do you think that actually it means? And it said sorry, and it also says b'shana ha'acheret. So, if you hold that in Tishrei this all happened. So, do you mean to say that really Avram Avinu got the mitzvah in Chodesh Nisan, because we have all these sources saying it was in Chodesh Nisan, and he waited till Tishrei, and only in Tishrei he did this? What about his reason Makdim mitzvah, which we learned from Avram Avinu, that when he got the mitzvah, he didn't wait; he went right away to do the mitzvah. According to this reading, we're stuck. L'shana acheres, he waited a whole 6 months to get started. Doesn't make sense. It actually says, and the essence of this day, this very day, meaning the very day he got the mitzvah, was the day of the Brit Milah. Chapter, again, Perek Yud Zayin in Breshit, the end of Parshat Lech Lecha. So, V'omer Rabbeinu Tam, Dahane Da'amre B'Tishrei, Sirilahu, Rabbi Yeshua, Da'amar B'Nisan Nivra Ha'olam. The people who hold that this whole story happened in Tishrei, they hold like Rabbi Yeshua, who said the world was created in Chodesh Nisan, right? Ulechi, not Ulahachi, but Ulechi, Hada, the Pesach, Shana Acheret, Ki Vilam Moed Hazeh, Hainu Lamoed Shachar Zeh, the B'Yom Kippurim. So in that rendering, if you're going to say, Rabbeinu Tam says, according to the people who say this somehow happened in Tishrei, it means that you think the world was created in Chodesh Nisan, and that when the story happened, that it would come around to Pesach again, that would already be a new year. Why would it be a new year? L'shana acheret, because he holds the world's created in Nisan. So you get to Nisan, it's a new year, not that a year has elapsed. Yeah. Hainu lamoed achar dibiyom hakipurim amarlo v'karov l'sukot kolomar lamoed hazeh rishon shel shana acheret. The first holiday of the new year. If you say the world was created in Nisan, then the new year is Aleph Nisan. What's the first holiday in the new year? That is Pesach. So according to this rendering of B'Din Times, we kind of rescue it. Kind of. We could say somehow that he got the memo. You have to, in either case, you have to disregard in some way one of the midrashim. Right? The Rambam points out in his Hakdama that it is a fool's errand to try to reconcile all the midrashim that are out there. They're not supposed to be all reconciled. We have to build some kind of mental gymnastics. They're different interpretations of what happened. They are all true with a capital T. Which one is historically true? That's not the question at hand. It's which they're all true. They're all communicating a message, conveying what happened in this time or that. And Chazal were, according to the Rambam, Chazal are well aware of this, seeming contradictions. But stop trying to reconcile every single thing. They contradict each other all the time. This, page 11a, you don't need the Rambam. Right here, Tosfot and the Gemara, you just learning it, you say, oh, yeah, Taka, there's Makorot here, there's Makorot there. So when did it happen? It happened one of the two times. Each one is marshaling it for their purposes. You notice at the last second here, the Rabbeinu Tam pulled out of this that the fact that both Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Shua hold the Pesach Nolad Yitzchak was not a knock on either of their shitot. You can't prove one way or the other when the world was created, because each one will have a teretz, right? To try to explain. According to the Rabbi Yeshua wants to see it. This all happened in Tishrei. According to Rabbi Eliezer's Shita, it all happened in Nisan and Lamoed means L'Shana Acher means an entire year after this with the break line of Tishrei. Yeah, and then you don't need the 7 months and all that.
You know,
That wasn't enough. Wait, Ronnie, yeah.
if you really want to look at this a normal way, quote unquote, Abraham was 99 years old. He just had a bris. Sarah was 89 years old. She just started her cycle.
Right.
It took Abraham a couple of months until he was ready to have relations. It took Sarah a couple of cycles until her body was ready to be impregnated. So they were told on Pesach. It took them 3 months until they could actually conceive. And then you have the baby again on Pesach. What's wrong with a logical look at it?
You're onto something.
Trust me, if I had a bris,
You're
3
onto
months
something.
later, I ain't
Turn to the
ready.
next page. Turn to the next page. Look at the top of the page. Haggah. You see the Haggah? Here's the Haggah. Look at this. You ready?
Yeah.
This is the Ruach HaKodesh that comes down sometimes down to base matters. You don't realize. Oh my goodness. How did we do that? How did you just do that? I have no idea you just did that. Look at the Haggah. Shamati. This is still from the Bali Tosfot. What's being written here. This is still the Bali Tosfot. A Haggah means someone added it later. No doubt among the Bali Tosfot. But the point is, one of the later Talmidim among the generations of Tosfot put it in. Haggah. Shamati Devada Hamalach Baba Pesach. Get a Pirish Rashi b'Chumash. For sure they came on Pesach. Why? Rashi said so in Chumash. Rashi said so, it must be. Now, Rashi's quoting the Midrashim. He didn't make it up. And there are Midrashim Chalukim. I just finished showing you. But this, the Balatos would say here, Devadai, Balo b'Pesach, get a Pirish Rashi b'Chumash. Aval, Oto Lamo Eda Shuveilacha, Shomer Lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu Haya b'Tishrei. But when he said, when I come back to you next time, Lamo Eda Shuveilacha, Ka'it Chaya U'Lisara Bein, he did mean he's going to come on Tishrei. Okay. Umeoto lamoed darish hacha. Okay. And from that lamoed, we explain as follows. Dibesukot havakai. That it was actually happening on Sukkot. V'kamer le lamoed sha'achar ze ashuv. V'hainu b'Pesach. How to explain this? There's 2 lamoeds. The Malachim come and they say, we're going to be back. Lamoed Ashuvei Lecha. And, but what it means is, it's the Lamoed Ashuvei Lecha, the Moed that Hashem told you about Avram Avinu already in Perek Yud Zayin, when he spoke to you about the mitzvah of Brit Milah. We had that in Tosfot as well, if you recall. We had the line in Tosfot, just quoting from the Chumash. Asher Tela l'chasara lamoed hazeh b'shana ha'acheret. That is in Perek Yud Zayin, at the end of Parshat Lech Lecha. So in other words, before he did the Brit Milah, Hashem tells Avram Avinu that Asher Tela l'chasara lamoed hazeh b'shana ha'acheret. This time, next year. Okay? But then, when the angels come, they also speak about a moed. What moed do they speak about? The moed after that moed. In other words, first, we have the idea that Malachim showed up. It was Pesach, and they said when they came, La Moed Shuvei Lecha, and they meant to say the Moed that Hashem spoke about is the Moed will be back again. They came back on Tishrei. Tishrei, that's when she conceived, and then she had the baby the next year in Pesach. Look at it inside. Look at it inside. Look at it inside. Somehow not a feature here. Yeah. I'm just telling you what it says. Let's look inside. Yeah, maybe it's too slow soon. I don't know. So watch. Again. I'm starting again. Haggah. Shamati devada hamalachim bo b'Pesach k'depirish Rashi b'Chumash. Aval oto lam moed hashuvei lecha she'amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right, lam moed hashuvei lecha. Right, that moed lam moed hashuvei lecha is the moed hashuvei lecha of is the next one coming up, right? Shamar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Haya b'Tishrei umeoto lamoed darish hacha de besukot havakai de v'ka'amar le lamoed she'achar ze ashuv v'hainu b'Pesach aval malachim heim sartu srita b'kotel b'Pesach. So the malachim came Pesach time. They made a line on the wall. V'im tomar im kain my parich hacha im kain chimadlit yome tuma batzri lehu. What are you talking about? You have to wait for the days of Tuma that Sarah Imeinu had 7 days Tuma before they could conceive. Right? Shari lo Yahu go to the Pirish Rashi. On Pesach, when Avram Avinu had his Brit Milah and the angels came and they made a line on the wall and they said, Lamoed, we're going to come back and Sarah will have a child. So that was when she was Pirsanida. Fair enough. Then they didn't serve the matzah. So, okay, fair enough. But if you want to argue that really the angels came back a second time on Sukkot, so then who cares about the 7 days of Tuma that she had? Doesn't make a difference because they weren't going to conceive really until Sukkot time so they could have the baby by the following year. V'yesh lomar, inachinami. Okay, your question is part of the answer. How come? Dila'achar kach b'Sukkot, right? Kisha Amar Lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu Lamoed Ashuv Haytanida Midichtiv Atitzchak Sara B'Kirba V'Gomer Perish Efshar Achar Shezakanti Yafzer Li Eden Veset. Eden Veset means Eden Veset Ladam Nidut, right? So am I going to have the time periodicity is going to come back of a regular cycle of becoming a nida? Michlal shein isha yechol litaber elim kain yachzor la eden veset. A woman cannot become pregnant unless she has a general cycle. A youthful cycle means a time period, not youthful, but a time period of a regular periodicity. Otherwise, she's not it's not going to happen. When Hashem said to Avram Avinu, is anything too great for Hashem? Adain lo hayala eden veset. When that happened and she left and she was getting upbraided by the Ribono Shel Olam, so she didn't have an eden veset at a time of periodicity yet. Ushnit abra nit pastu hakematim v'nidadein habasar. When she became pregnant, the wrinkles disappeared. They became smooth again, and her flesh became renewed. V'chazer la veset, and then she had regular periodicity. V'im tomar mibiar malachim harei chazarla. Yeah, if you're going to tell me when the angels came on Pesach, obviously then she already became a nida because she could not bring the matzahs, even according to the Parish Rashi. So later, that's not an issue. Why? That was like a one-off. She's a freak accident. She didn't think anything of it when that happened, and therefore she was not able to serve the matzahs. And the Beth didn't come back until the word Lamoed was spoken. Viraya shelo haya ella akroi, right? Shaharei achar sha'ach malachim ktiv chadaliot l'sara orach kanashim. How do you know it was a one-off? That when they finished eating already, it says in the Torah testifies that Sarah no longer had the way of women, meaning she was no longer getting her period. She just had her period. That was an akroi. Hilkach parach kimad lemar. They have to start clearing that maybe the 7 days came and went, etc. Right? To me, I don't fully understand it or it doesn't fully add up, but it's along the lines of what Ronnie is saying. Something happened here where somehow, if you use this, and this is why is this happening? Because this one of the Bali Tosfot, whoever this is, wants to make sure that we're going to reconcile Rashi ala Torah with what we're reading here. So how am I going to do that? The angels must have come somehow twice. They were there Pesach time. They were there Sukkot time. You'll ask me, where in the Torah exactly does it say they left and they came back? And you live there. It's a long, drawn out conversation.
But it says that you'll be later, Lamoed, that it's coming back again, which presumably that's
Min hastam. I mean, there's certain things in the pshat that it's hard to reconcile. We know when the Malachim arrive in Sodom, they go straight from Sarah and Avram Sarah's house to tent to Sodom. And when they get there, remember, he's giving them matzot. It says so. Because how come? Because it was Pesach. How does Lot know it's Pesach? Because he used to live with Uncle Abraham, so they have the same idea. By the way, he was also subject to at least a Yitziat or Kazdim and a Yitziat Mitzrayim. He was with them in Mitzrayim, remember? So maybe he has it also. And the point is, then somehow, even though the story that we have at the beginning of Perek Yud Chet is one story, there's no paragraph breaks and stuff like that, but the Bali Tosfot have done this elsewhere also. Ayin Sham, Perek Tetvav, the Brit Ben B'tarim. Maybe you don't see it, but there's like a tefer, there's a seam in the story where part of the story happened Pesach, And then it continues that they went down to Stone, and then the rest of the story happened Sukkot. But the title on the story is Malachim reporting to the home of Sarah and Avram, so it's under one koteret. And therefore, when they come back Sukkot time, that's when she already has a real periodicity. That's when they say to her Lamoed, and now they don't mean Lamoed next year. They mean by the next Yom Tov and Taka. Then she already has, as Ronnie pointed out, he's healed from the bris. She's already got a regular periodicity, and that's it. And so therefore, they're able to have Yitzchak Avinu by the time you get the Pesach. Some like this, and others will argue it's, because you want to reconcile with the Rashi. And Toso was very clear before. So, you have the Seder Olam, you have the Mechilta, you have the Medrash Tanchuma. They just don't agree with this Gemara. Fine, finished. It doesn't have to all work out, and it's fine. Yeah, first Ira, and then Larry. It was first. Sorry, go ahead.
Moed jumps around Rosh Hashanah and Sukkot, right?
You could say maybe it's Rosh Hashanah, but that's questionable. Only because Rosh Hashanah does not have. The Gemara does not bring Rosh Hashanah into the mix here.
You said Moed made reference to Rosh Hashanah.
No,
No?
I don't think so. Parshat Moadot does include all, including Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur do not have an analog in the world of the agricultural cycle. And the Moadim we're talking about here, for Shalosh Regalim, for all that, seems to be is referring to the only Pesach Shavuot Sukkot.
So Zele Moadir.
Sarah,
גם אין עלייה לרגל.
she couldn't serve the matzah, or she couldn't bake them, or she puts a nida.
It says Lushi Vasiugot. So she touched it, and she was a Nida, and they're on a very high level, so they can't, but too much Nida, again, and they're makbid on such things. The Malach weren't going to be able to eat it.
Needed them the bread.
They didn't have. They don't bring it. In the end, it's never brought to the Malachim. How come? Pirsanida. How do they know about Tuman Tahara? Because it's Avram Avinu and he knows the whole Torah. How does he know the whole Torah? He's a Navi. Shem tells him the whole thing. That's how he knows. How come we don't see it in the Torah? Because he's an Eina Mitzuva V'osa. So you don't learn that there. You're not going to see it. Doesn't mean it's not true. It's, okay. Yeah.
So I'm confused because it's only written once. In the Torah it says Hayipalei me Hashem davar lamoed ashuve lacha kayit sarah l'sara vein.
Right. Go back to chapter 17. Go back to Parak Yud Zayin.
Okay, go back.
Yud Zayin. You're going forward. Go back to Yud Zayin, and you'll see in Parak Yud Zayin Hashem is talking to Avram Avinu, and in Pasuk Yud Zayin Pasuk Chaf Aleph Vet Briti Akimat Yitzchak Asher Tilil Chasara Lamoed Hazeh Bashana Ha'acheret.
Okay, I see.
So when is Hashem telling Avram Avinu that? Well, clearly he's telling him that in Chodesh Nisan because he had the bris in Chodesh Nisan because the Malachim came in Chodesh Nisan.
So that's where.
But according to the way this piece here, the Haggah, understanding it, somehow the middle of this conversation, there's a break. We don't see the break. As it were, the Rebbeinu Shalom told Moshe Rabbeinu, don't write a Parsha Stuma, Parsha Ptucha, keep it together. But it's really happening in two different times. Again, I could see two perfect Jews. One Jew who says, oh, that's beautiful, elegant, and it resolves the problem. Another Jew who says, stop. You don't need to do that. Why are you doing that? Right? But the answer is because it's answering certain problems. So for people who are bothered by that problem, that's an elegant solution. Who are not bothered by that problem, they'll have other problems. So there's another solution. So, again, and by the by, Yatsa Mizeh, that the fact of a Pesach Nolad Yitzchak could be read as vindicating either of Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, about when the world was created, etc. It makes no difference. Because the Shana Acheret means you pass through a new year, yeah? So what new year? New year in Nisan? New year in Tishrei? Yeah, sure, can work it out. You do want to say something? And I gotta go over to George.
What's a samech?
It's a hey.
Oh, it's a hey.
Adkan Lashona HaKodesh? Could be, I don't know. Akal is Adkan Lashona. Adkan Lashon HaKodesh. I didn't do my homework. I don't know who this Haggah is. Shamati. Who's Shamati? Shamati what? Haggah what? I don't know who it is. But that's how it works, right? Someone put it into Tosfot. So Rishon added it in. That's all we know. Yeah, please.
It seems to me that.
We could. Sometimes we could, yeah.
I'm saying it seems to me the explanation of Tosfot makes a lot of sense.
Fine.
Because you have to get in this question of 7 months and this.
You're one of those Jews. That's okay, perfect. And someone on the other side of the table says that doesn't work. No, of course you have to work it out. What are you gonna do with Rashi and Chumash and this and that?
Because you don't have to twist yourself into saying it's 7 months.
Okay,
etc.
fine, fine.
So
Yeah.
Avram and Sarah were celebrating Pesach. In a certain sense, they're doing all the mitzvahs, I'm assuming they're part of Pesach.
Mhm.
So, and Uncle Lot knew,
Nephew Lot.
not nephew Lot, nephew Lot.
Nephew.
Nephew to some, uncle to some.
Yeah.
So Yitzchak and Yaakov and all their sons wouldn't have followed,
Avada.
right?
Of course they
So,
did.
But it was a different Pesach, it was different.
Yeah, first of all,
Mitzrayim is-
Yeah, first of all, they have no isurim here. They keep mitzvot say. They don't do the mitzvot lo say. So says the Maharal in the, I think in Tiferet Yisrael. The Maharal says they kept the mitzvot say, but they weren't bound to the mitzvot lo say.
Lo ta'aseh pesel lo masecha. So they
But
took care of
Lo
that.
takim matzeva. Well, it's okay. That they did, but that had to do with the principles of behind it. I mean, the Maharal works out each thing. They did this, they didn't do that, right? It's sort of like how is Yaakov married to two sisters, right? So it's in Chutz La'aretz and it's before the Torah was given, but he knows what's happening. How did Yaakov put up a matzeva, right? So and then you'll quote me, right? Rashi says in Lavan Garti v'taryag mitzvot shamarti. So taryag mitzvot implies 365 prohibitions. So what is taryag mitzvot shamarti? What does shamarti mean? I kept them or I guarded them because I knew that they were out there. For instance, he couldn't have literally kept taryag mitzvot. Yeah, he couldn't have. Eloya Beretz Yisrael. He didn't have kibbud avim at that time. He's not a kohen. There's no mikdash. There's no mitzvah to tluyat ba'aretz. There's this is the slew of things. You go the hundreds and hundreds of mitzvahs that clearly he didn't keep. But what does it mean? Taryag mitzvah shamarti. That means literally I performed each one. It means I'm committed to the system, right? And by the way, it's a drasha on the word garti. Taryag is scrambled, which is actually, if you look in Rashi, a davar acher, and there's another version of what Garti means. Garti means I wasn't really a resident. I didn't have wealth. Remember, I was a stranger even in his house. So why a davar aches? If you study Rashi on Chumash, we've studied it. We spent the whole year, 1 year, and maybe 12 years ago, we went through Rashi and the brilliance of Rashi. Why davar aches? Because there's something doesn't exactly work. So the other answer will answer for it. And if something in that answer doesn't work, the other answer will answer for it. Yeah. I don't mean to do a Parshat Mikra over here, but I am kind of about to set the stage for the next sugi that we're going to do, where we'll have to grapple with certain contradictions for ourselves and may remain somewhat unresolved. How's that for a spoiler? Okay, so a teaser, I mean. Anyone else? Something else? Okay. Next Indian. So if you go back to Yud Aleph and Aleph, the simple part is the next pieces of the Gemara, which we already read last time. We'll make a lane on it again, a Chazara. Ronnie, you don't have to listen to the shir from last time because you just heard it. It's basically a Chazara. A little quicker than last time, but okay. With your Ha'aros, so it's great. So if you look in the Gemara here says, I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines up from the bottom of the page. B'Rosh Hashanah, halfway across the line. B'Rosh Hashanah nifkid asar Rachel v'Chana. Right? They were remembered on that day. Doesn't mean they conceived on that day. It means they were remembered by Hashem, because on Rosh Hashanah, the decision is being made who's going to have a baby in the new year and who's not. Minal, and how do you know this? Amar Rabbi Lazar, Ata Pekida, Ata Zechira. Okay. K'tiv b'Rachel vayizkor Elokim et Rachel uktiv b'Chana vayizkira Hashem v'at zechira Rosh Hashanah dichtiv Shabbaton zichron trua. So in other words, the drasha is on the word that Hashem remembered, and Rosh Hashanah is about zikaron. Pekida k'tiv b'Chana ki pakad Hashem et Sarah uktiv b'Sara v'Hashem pakad et Sarah. So you have Chana. I think I read it right. Ki pakad Hashem et Chana uktiv b'Sara v'Hashem pakad et Sarah. Right? So the point is Pekida. So there's like a chain, right? Chana and Rachel, there's a Zechira, right? Zechira, Zichron, Trua, Zichron. And then you have the connection to Chana and Sarah. What's interesting, by the way, is that the bridge between all of them is Chana from a linguistic perspective, right? Connecting one, you know what I'm saying? To go from one to the other. So, okay. So you have some Ki Pakad Hashem and Chana, and Vashem Pakad et Sarah. So again, Hashem remembered them at that time. Next one. Rosh Hashanah Yatsi Yosef Ben Asur. Everybody agrees. Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Eliezer, Minala, Dichtiv, because it says in the Shir Shal Yom of Thursday, Tiku B'Chodesh Shofar, Ba'Kesed, misspelled as B'Kisei, right? Who wrote Ba'Kisei? The printer. Maybe there were manuscripts that had Ba'Kisei, but the manuscripts of Tehillim we have is Ba'Kesed, right? Now, why am I making a tzimis out of it? because by kisei, sounds like a kisei din.
Right.
That's not it. Tikkun b'chodesh shofar bakasa liyom chagenu. Yichol Yisrael hu, etc., right? V'gomer. Next pasuk, Eidud b'Yosef Samo v'Seito v'Chulei al Eretz Mitzrayim and the like. So the fact that it has two psukim, one next to the other, right, means that there must be a connection between Tikkun b'Chodesh Shofar Kesel Yom Chagenu and the fact that Yosef goes out onto Egypt at that time. But Seito al Eretz Mitzrayim, Eidut, a testimony, b'Yosef Samo v'Seito al Eretz Mitzrayim. Rashi, not quite the top of the page, the top Rashi. On the left-hand column, Edut Yosef Samo, Batrei the Ha'ukra, Tiv Dechi Chok Yisrael. So clearly, there's some connection there as well. Further, end of that first line of the Gemara, Rosh Hashanah Batla Avoda Me'avotena B'Mitzrayim, Ktiv Hacha V'otzeitechem Mitachat Sivlot Mitzrayim. I'll take you out from under the burdens of Egypt. Uchtiv Hatam in the Parsha, the parak rather of Tehillim, known as Pei Aleph, which is Lametzeach Yitit, right? That's Thursday, right? So that's Tikkun b'Chodesh Shofar, and then there's a pasuk about Yosef, and then there's a pasuk that says Hasiroti Misevel Shichmo, Sevel. That's the connection. Rashi, second line of Rashi, left-hand column over here on our page. Hasir Misevel Shichmo b'Yosef Ktiv Batar Edut b'Yehosef. After the testimony was given about Yosef, and Hay was added to his name. Right, and then it says, I removed his burden from upon his shoulder. Who's that? That's the Jewish people. Sivlot and Sivlot. And that happens when? In Tishrei. How do you know? Because the Koteret on the top of Pei Aleph is related to at least not of the name, huh? By Kesdim Chagenu, so that's already Rosh Hashanah. By the way, we learned that. Tikkun b'Chodesh Shofar Kesdim Chagenu. We learned that on Daf Chet. That referred to the idea of when do you have a holiday when you're going to blow the shofar and the moon is covered by Kesel Mishon Kisui. That's Tishrei because it starts the beginning of the month, the first day of the month on Rosh Chodesh itself. So then the Gemara says, "B'Nisan Nigalu K'de'ita." How do you know they were redeemed in Nisan? Because the Torah says so. Fine, but Tishrei Atidin Ligal. What about the side of Rabbi Eliezer who holds that they're going to be redeemed in Chodesh Tishrei? Remember, he said, "B'Nisan Nigalu Avotenu." But Tishrei Atidin Ligal. We understood, but Nisan, in Nisan, the Jewish people were redeemed, and in Nisan, they'll be redeemed again. But what are you telling me in Nisan, they were redeemed, and in Tishrei, they will be redeemed? How do you get to Tishrei? So his answer is Rabbi Eliezer's side, Atya Shofar Shofar, the Xerit Shavah between the two words of Shofar. Ktiv Hacha Tigu B'Chodesh Shofar, Uchtiv Hatam, it says over there means all the way in Sefer Yeshaya, Bayomahu Yitaka B'Shofar Gadol. Then in the future, we'll hear the sound of the shofar, the great shofar will be sounded. What will happen at that time? Parak Chaf Zayin and Yeshaya, Uvav Ha'ovdim Be'eretz Ashur, Vanidachim Be'eretz Mitzrayim, Vishtaglu Hashem B'Har HaKodesh B'Yerushalayim, right? It's coming. So shofar, Gzeira Shava, it's in Tishrei. Rabbi Yehoshua Omer, B'Nisan Nigalu, B'Nisan Atidin Ligal. And how does he say that it should be in the same month? How is he so sure? Amar Kra, we learned this by the way in Shabbos Hagadol, Drasha. Leil Shimurim, Leil Mishumar Uba, Mishesh Yemei Bereshit, right? Leil Shimurim is Leil, the night that was guarded and kept from the time, the 6 days of creation, i.e. for the end of time. Meaning, when it says in the Torah, Leil Shimurim Ul Hashem, it means it's referring to this night of redemption, 15th of Nisan, will also be the redemption in the future because it's the day that's been held in abeyance from the time of the creation. And it will be used someday, and it's the same night as Yetziat Mitzrayim. V'idach, according to Rabbi Eliezer, how does he understand those words, Leil Shimurim? And the answer is Laila Mishumaru Ba Mina Mazikin. It refers to the night that is guarded and protected. You're protected from Mazikin, from spiritual damaging forces. This was the Shabbos Hagadol Drash, for those who can remember, so many months back. We talked about this idea of the Leil Shimurim, what are Mazikin, what's going on here, right? Tosfot here on this page point out that Rabbi Yeshua just thinks you can learn two things from Leil Shimurim. He has to for sure, he says his point, Nisan, but he also must agree with Rabbi Eliezer. How come? Because the Gemara in Masachet Kiddush and Psachim on Kuf Yud Tet has there the statement that you have 4 cups of wine at the Seder. 4 is 2 plus 2, and 2 every time is Sugyot, and 4 is a multiple, multiple of 2s. So how could you do that? We don't allow Zugot. We're nervous about Zugot. The Gemara says, no, Lil Shimurim. Lil Shimurim, Lil HaMeshumar, Uba Min HaMezikin. So the Tosas just point out, so that means Rabbi Yeshua, from a logic vantage point, must agree with the interpretation of Rabbi Eliezer that Lil Shimurim also means Meshumar Uba Min HaMezikin, but Rabbi Yeshua also holds that it means Nisan, Nisan, and Rabbi Eliezer says, you can't make the two drushes. I only hold one thing on the words Leil Shimurim. Yeah? Okay. Stop there. Okay, let's take a breather. Everybody with me so far? Okay. Now we're gonna, I don't know how far we'll get in the Gemara. We're gonna dive off into an abyss. I hope it won't be an abyss that has no bottom, but we have to do a little bit of background. So you'll indulge me because you need, without this introduction, it's going to be a lot of challenging times ahead. So, I tried to think a little bit on the plane in my many moments of like almost lucidity, total exhaustion, how to present this. The entire world that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made is a mystery to us, and he davka made it so that we need to discover things in it. The Hasidim like to say that's why it's called an olam, because the Ribbon Shalom's presence is hidden, milashon aleim, like helem davar, alin lamed mem, there's something hidden. What's hidden? The presence of Hashem is hidden. Hidden in what? In teva. But on another level, it also means that there are mysteries to the world that the Ribbon Shalom has left us to figure out. Asher bara Elokim la'asot. Some of the Rishonim already understand it to mean, so you figure it out. Cures to disease, building materials, new technologies, new discoveries, new things. Okay, fine. Chazal, for the purpose of understanding what is happening with Kiddush HaChodesh, needed to understand everything about how astronomy functions, but they could only understand it in two ways. Number one, based on what they learned from their Rebbeim, what comes halacha Moshe Sinai, or I'm losing that term loosely, traditions about how to understand the world that come from the Ribbon Shalom to Moshe Rabbeinu Har Sinai, right? And they come through the generations. What's the other way? They learn whatever the science of the day is, and they understand the world around them, and that's them making the decisions. Okay? Now, we don't know the line always between what is a received tradition from the Ribbon Shalom. Very often we do. Mitzvahs, for instance, that's from the Ribbon Shalom, and what is actually discovered or based on the science of the day. So to take an example, if the Ribbon Shalom told Moshe Rabbeinu how to cure every single disease in the world on Har Sinai, we simply have no idea. The Gemara does not tell us that. Did Hashem tell him that? Maybe. Maybe not. I mean, how could you prove it? You'll tell me there's medical information in the Gemara. There's medical suggestions, prescriptions, do this, if this is wrong, and that's wrong. So the Geonim, who come right after the period of the Moram, are already saying, we don't hold of that. The Chacham didn't intend for us to hold of that. They said it in their database and their understanding of medicine. We have a much better understanding. We simply don't use the medical material that's in the Shas. Full stop. Just like that. Okay? Now, that's just the reality of it. The time marched on. There's a better understanding. It's not Khalil to go against Chazal, Rahman al-Itzlan, but just to say, even the Gaonim already thought, we're not going to do that. We understand things in a different way. So that's sort of baseline. There was a revolution that transpired for the entire known, to all of humanity, that to us may seem very simple, but in their time was absolutely revolutionary, and it took hundreds of years to gain the level of acceptance in the non-Jewish world. Hundreds of years, with people being killed for their views, until finally it was accepted as the truth. And that has some bearing on our Gemara. In the 1500s, Copernicus essentially discovered and wrote that the world is not geocentric. Everyone held, Jewish, not everyone held, the world is geocentric. So the basic understanding of the world, which will be important for our purposes to understand the next Gemaras, is that planet Earth is at the center of whatever's out there, and there are, call them wheels, like a circle, a wheel. The wheels in Hebrew galgalim, And those wheels that are around planet Earth, the Earth is stationary and everything is circling it. There are several such wheels, there are 7 such wheels. They're also called the Galgalim, they're also called the Sfirot. And each one of those has another heavenly body that the Rebbeinu Shalom implanted within it that is making a loop around planet Earth. 1, 2, 3, and then 5, 6, 7. But 4, that's the sun. Past that, there is like an outer dome. It's not a dome, it's a circle. And it's a dome, and it's the stars. What are the stars? They're tiny lights that were placed up in the highest level beyond all of these sfirot. What I'm telling you now is not what Chazal were saying, it's what the entire world was saying. It's what the Rambam is writing in the Mishnah Torah as the facts of the matter. That's what they knew, it's understood. A massive, massive revolution arrives with Copernicus. We have a record of various people within our tradition who were already entertaining the possibility that maybe Copernicus is correct. Of course, Copernicus arguing that the sun is at the center of the universe, That's what he thought. And that everything meaning the Galgalim, if you will, are circling the sun, of which Earth is one of those things, right? By the way, the moon is one of those circles, okay? And then we're going to get eventually to the highest level, Copernicus, which is the stars. That's the 1500s, 1540s, I think. By the time you get to the early 1600s, you have Galileo in 1608, 1609, something like that. It's early 1600s. They almost kill him for arguing that Copernicus might be right. He recants on pain of torture. There's someone named Bruno. He gets killed for his views on the subject. You look this up. I'm interested in these topics. It's just fascinating to me. And you'll find that various people of note were engaging these ideas. They're showing an awareness of them. And at the beginning, I would say the pendulum is mostly still saying, these guys can't prove it. They don't know what they're talking about. It's just wild theory. They don't know. And we don't know. And the earth is flat was also a well-known idea. Why wouldn't you think the earth is flat? Why wouldn't you? You never, right? If the earth is circular, then how come you don't fall? Like they just simply did not understand. They didn't know, right? So to us, we look at it like, but they, mamash, and it's not that the Jews didn't know, the world didn't know. And I'm telling you that until the 1800s, then, sorry, I forgot to mention, competing with Copernicus is Tycho Brahe, right? Tycho Brahe is another great scientist. He has another idea that there's a relationship between the earth and the sun, and they're somehow in relation to each other, a whole story. And people are trying to answer various questions like, how come the moon is seen in phases? And then they realize at some point, that's already thanks to Galileo, that's why he was convinced, he sees that Venus also has phases. And he realized it has phases. How could it have phases if the sun is shining on it? If the sun is also going around, there are certain phases of Venus you should never be able to see, but you do see them. So it must be the sun is that it is going around the sun. It's a whole calculation, but I'm not giving you a course in the history of science. I'm not an expert in that by any means. I raise this just to say that from the perspective of our world, right? When we talk, even today, you say the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. But if you wanted to be a stickler, you would say, no, the sun is not rising and setting at all. Planet Earth is rotating. And the way that planet Earth rotates creates the illusion that the sun, which is not moving, it is, by the way, moving, but it's not moving relative to planet Earth, right? That the Earth is just moving. So the sun is here, the Earth is turning. So it looks like it's coming up and going down. From Chazal's perspective, there's the Earth, the sun goes up, and the sun goes down. Where does the sun go when it's not there? It's under the Earth. And it comes back out.
It's Egyptians.
It's everyone. It's the Sumerians, the Akkadians, the Hittites, the Canaanites, the Jews. Everybody, this is what the whole world understood about science. That's what they knew. As it turns out, of course, also, needless to say, even Copernicus is wrong, right? The sun is not the center of the universe, because then they make this crazy discovery that every single star is actually a sun. And actually, then they discover, and by the by, this entire time, for thousands of years, the Jewish people are being told, you have this foolish idea the world is created. It was never created. It's eternal. It was always this way. And it's static. It doesn't move, right? Into the 20th century, people are claiming this. Einstein thought this until the fine day when he realized, I'm wrong. Einstein, 20th century, a Yid, Dafka. He discovers the universe is actually really expanding. Huh? And so on and so forth. And then Penzias and Arno Penzias, who was Jewish and very traditional, by the way, and this other fellow, Wilson. They discover the background microwave radiation to this crazy theory called the Big Bang theory, where that everything started from some infinitesimal ball of energy. There's a tremendous explosion, and a very, very incredibly small span of time, the universe expands in some ridiculous gargantuan way. And suddenly all the clouds says, well, we've been talking about Yesh Me'ayin for, I don't know, since the Torah was given, since Avram Avinu walked planet Earth, and you kept claiming that it was, right, the Greeks, the philosophers, everybody said the universe is static. It's not created. It's not going anywhere. It'll always be the way it is. The Egyptians were very into this idea. That's why they thought they're going to live forever. That's why they're, quote unquote, the descendant of the sun god, because the sun's never moving. It's not going anywhere. And Claudius was saying, no, this whole thing is all temporary. It started from nothing. It'll eventually be nothing. We hope not to be alive for that part. At least I hope not to be alive for that part of it. It's expanding. Yeah. Okay, so we're in a much better place today in the 21st century than we've been for many, many centuries with this. I say all of this because also from our vantage point, the way we experience things, the way we experience it, Adayom is our frame of reference, right, is in fact, we stand on planet Earth, the sun comes up and it goes down. The moon has phases, it waxes and wanes. Now, you start asking me what actually is happening with the moon. The moon is not going around, right? A planet Earth like Mars is going around planet Earth like Venus is. No, none of that. That's not true. Only the moon is a satellite of planet Earth. It's going around, and by the way, they're not going round. They're in an oval shape. Everyone is elliptical. So there's so many discoveries that were made. Now I'm telling you all this. So we should understand the next piece of it, which is that nobody understood what the stars were. Nobody understood what they were, which was why it lent itself to idolatry, which was why Judaism was founded, predicated on the idea, whatever these things are, they're not God. This is a major revolution in the world. And Avram Avinu is saying this because everyone says, of course it's controlling what's happening. It's on top of everything. It's the outer layer of everything. What's beyond it? The nebula. We don't know. Exactly the point. Oved Kochavim u Mazalot. What is a mazal? It's a constellation. What are the mazalot? It's called drawing lines between the dots. That's what mazalot are. Literally, they made pictures. And then eventually, the Rambam writes this at the beginning, right? We can't see it during the day. We want to know what it is. We want to respect it, right? Clearly, those stars represent something from God. There is one God, but he made stars. The stars must represent the angels. Maybe they're angels. Maybe we have to pay them homage and respect. That's the primrose path, right? That's Plinko from The Price is Right from many years ago, going down till we're going to be Ovdei Avodah Zarah. That's what happened. That's what he writes. Right? That's what okay. Even within Judaism, there's a concept of mazalot. Mazalot means the constellations. The Gemara here will talk about mazalot. But mazalot doesn't mean, for our purposes here, halachically speaking, it's not about luck. It's about time, certain times of the year that are times of Yom Tov and good times, and times of the year when bad things happen to us. So we're associating ourselves with it. I gave the example last year, I believe, that is it so far-fetched that Avram Avinu in the springtime, when the main constellation of the springtime is what? Is Aries, aka the ram, or aka the lamb. We call it in Lashon Kodesh, it's called the Tleh, where people are worshiping some kind of a constellation of the Tleh. What's Avram Avinu doing? He's shachting the Tleh, and he's offering it as an offering to Hashem. You see how this works? Now, what are the constellations? Kiddush HaChodesh, Kiddush Levana. Okay, there's 12 constellations. There are 12 constellations. When are those kind of constellations in the sky? The answer is every day they're in the sky. In a 24-hour period, 12 constellations pass through every time. And when you're in a place, not in an urban setting, you can spend a lot of time just looking up at the stars and being awestruck by how they function. I have a lot to say about this, as you can see, but we're not going to get too much farther into it. Let's just say the 12 constellations, each one is represented by a picture, even in Judaism. Why? Because whichever constellation is coming up with the sun, essentially, that in a given month, that's gonna be the controlling constellation of the month. Now, when I say controlling, I'm not saying it's controlling what's going to happen. I'm saying it's the dominant known constellation of the month. So the month of Nisan is the Tleh, Ad Yom Hazeh, right? The Aries, right? Then right? It keeps going. Each month is going to be another picture. The next month is Iyar. Iyar is the mazel of the shore. After that is Ta'omim, in English, Gemini, right? With Sivan, Ta'omim, right? Then going to come Tammuz, right? Then Av. Av is already an Aryeh. Tammuz is the crab, right? Is Cancer, is the crab. Then you're gonna have the Aryeh is Av. Elul is going to be Virgo, is the Betula. How do the Jews have the same one the non-Jews have? Very simply, because we're all looking at the same sky. And by convention, that's what they call it. Okay. Now, what is it? It's literally the pictures based on what's happening. And then Tishrei, when we're being judged, is Chodesh HaMoznayim, the balance. Then comes the Scorpio. Then after that is the Keshet, is the bow, right? And then after that comes the Dli and the Gedi, the Dli and the Dagim. Adar is Dagim. It's Pisces. Now, why am I telling you all this? We're going to need this for the Gemara. From our vantage point on planet Earth, we have to recognize that indeed we're going to use the system essentially as the Gemara understood it. The craziest part is it's not going to make a whit of difference whether it's heliocentric or geocentric from the perspective of where we stand and look up at the sky. So we're geocentric, we live here. So we look at the sky and there's going to be a whole explanation, understanding of time based on, and by the by, as the months go, so in Chodesh Tishrei, when the sun rises every day, it lines up that the constellation that's on in the eastern sky with the sun as it's coming up, which of course you don't see because the sun is blocking it out, is what? Is the Moznaim in Chodesh Tishrei, is the scales. Okay, you can't see it because it's blocked out. I guess if there's a way to cover the sun, you would see that, right? Because planet Earth, remember, it's rotating and it's in a revolution. It's the revolutions that are actually what dominate what is going to be seen, where it looks almost like, from the perspective of planet Earth, as if the sun is passing through the constellation. The sun is not passing through the constellation. The constellation is here. The sun is here. We're going around the sun, right? Now, by the way, the sun itself, of course, as we know today, the sun is moving. The whole solar system is moving. The galaxy is moving. The universe is moving. Everything's moving. But for our purposes, it seems stationary because it's not moving fast enough to make any perceptible difference. So you have the reality of the sky is moving. By the way, it's not moving like this. It's like in a diagonal, depending where you're standing on planet Earth, but you see it moving with the sun as if the sun was passing through it. But every 12 hours, as it goes around, you'll have 12 hours daylight, 12 hours nighttime. Every night in the sky, you're going to see the constellations going by. Okay, I think that was enough mind-bending material, but this hopefully sets the stage for the next year. We have to start getting into the issue of the mazalot, and we'll need it later also for the calculations of months and tekufot, etc. Buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Okay, I got to stop there. Also, I have a wedding next week on Monday in New York, and I'm being flown to the wedding along with apparently many of my colleagues from Chicago. So for a fine member of the community is having a wedding.